than 5% away from getting a distinction. And I don't know what happened because I never asked for a remark, but I suspect that poetry had something to do with it. So I really have great respect for Dr. Don Mattera, and all those honorary doctorates, very well deserved. It's quite profound, though, that as a city and as the nation and as the globe, we lost Dr. Don Mattera on the same day that we were commemorating our annual Mandela Day. Very interesting that on this day, we were remembering what Dr. Nelson Mandela said to us about celebrating his birthday and how we should rather give 67 minutes of our time to do something good for somebody else or for our community. It's also for me very interesting that Dr. Don Mattera departs from this world just 2 nights after the Joburg Theatre celebrated its 60 years, its Jubilee celebration. And for this particular celebration, we also did something quite special in that we unveiled the Diamond Walk. And this Diamond Walk is where we celebrated the lives and legacies of men and women who are members and ambassadors of our arts and culture fraternity as a nation. We celebrated different living icons, even those who were departed, the likes of Mama Miriam Makeba, Johnny Clegg, Athol Fugard, Hugh Masekela, John Kani, and of course, Dr. Don Mattera. And all these beautiful names are now emblazoned on our Diamond Walk at the Joburg Theatres for all of us to go and look upon and reflect, not just today, but for decades to come, which means that these legends will continue to inspire generations to come, generations of artists and activists. So today, anybody that goes to the Joburg Theatre and goes and looks at, you know, at the patio, just when you're entering into the theatre, one of the tiles will say, Don Mattera. So even if you didn't know him, you're bound to ask, who was this man? And the elders will open the scrolls and they'll begin to tell you who Dr. Don Mattera was. Who today, as we memorialize him, we must also remember that on this day in 2013, we also lost the great judicial leader, former Constitutional Court Chief Justice Pius Langa, who the Mail and Guardian described as a sober, kind, and humble revolutionary. What an interesting time in our history. So Dr. Mattera's spirit joins a legion of great men and women who are no longer with us, but who served this country with passion and with compassion. The great author and activist who sacrificed so much of himself, his family, for a better world, always emphasized compassion, and that's the overriding theme today. We should, in all that we do it with compassion. This is very close to my heart, and like MMC said, it's something I can relate to, having, because of compassion, been pulled out of my comfort zone into a very complex world of politics. But there's so much violence and so much cruelty in our world today, particularly in the areas that Dr. Don Mattera was passionate about. And we could all do with a little more compassion. Compassion for one another, compassion for our communities. He reminded us that the highest religion is compassion. Now this last month, almost every weekend in this country, we woke up to the news of senseless mass killings of young people. This says to me that love and compassion need to be stitched back into our social fiber as South Africans. Where is the compassion and the love for our fellow people who face a plethora of struggles every day. I stand here as a political leader responsible for leading the charge to see the lives of people changed. But I also know that it can't be done on policies alone. I know that compassion is a big part of the recipe to success. Dr. Mattera was an extraordinary man who devoted his life to public service and to helping other people. And he continued to fight for equality until the very end of his life. It was so refreshing for me to watch that video clip of his. I think that was 2 years ago when his Legacy Foundation was launched. And as I was listening to him, all I was hearing him say is, I've done my part, but there's still so much to be done. And that I pray to God that he remembers me for the part that I've contributed, but there is still so much to be done. And I was challenged sitting there listening to him as to which part of his race will I take forward. He described his mission as to remove pain and suffering from people's lives. That was his mission. And it wasn't just a soundbite, but it was a clarion call to action, to activism in our communities. And he said this in the context of these communities that he was particularly passionate about. And these are the communities of Sophiatown, Bosmont, Westbury, and New Clare. Communities that today still suffer many of the ills that Don Mattera fought against, especially those that affected the youth. The Joburg multi-party government has been working very closely with these communities to try and understand where the social fault lines are and how we can turn the situation around. But here we have a man, we have an icon that has lived, and I'm so grateful that he did not only live, he wrote. And because he wrote, his message lives on. And I was sitting with the chair of the foundation earlier over the interval now saying, how do we get his books into schools? How do we get them into our libraries? So that his message can continue to live, not only in this generation, but generations to come. I'd like to urge all of us today. This man lived for 86 years. He has lived. He lived well. He's run his race, and he ran it well. He's gone on to be with the Father. You and I remain behind. Which chapter of his book are you going to take forward? For me, it's compassion. It's right there. The same compassion that brought me out of medicine into this world of politics. May I never grow complacent. May I never grow brazen. May I never get desensitized. May I never stop caring. May I always remember that the highest religion is compassion. I think for me, the other thing that blessed me this morning when we started, or earlier this afternoon, was just seeing the different religious groups coming together and praying together in one place. I so much long for a time when these walls that divide us can just crumble. And we can be reunited by one religion. And I'm looking at Dr. Don and what he left us about compassion being the highest religion. And I'm thinking, could that be the religion that will finally bind us all together? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.